Well, hello, my luscious little monsters. I'm Glamora, your host, your goddess, and your excuse for staying up past midnight. Welcome to Yaoi Monsters, tales from the dark and fabulous, where love bites, magic sparkles, and every shadow has a secret worth sinking your teeth into. Tonight, we're howling our way to the misty English coast for a tale of heartbreak, moonlight, and one very misunderstood werewolf. You might even recognize him, our brooding heartthrob Luca, one of the original Yaoi Monsters himself, now stepping out of the merch and into the moonlight for his own dark little love story. So fluff your hair, pour something wicked, and follow me into the fog for tonight's tale. Part 1, The Greyhaven Chronicles. The moon beneath our skin.
The sea was grey that morning. Not the soft grey of fog or pearl, but the cold, hard grey of tin. Luca Harroway stood at the edge of the dock and breathed in the salt air as if it could scour the past from his lungs. He was 20, with hair the colour of maple bark and eyes that vanished in a crowd. Average in every sense: height, build, presence. The kind of man the world looked through instead of at. Once he'd counted that as mercy. Lately it felt like erasure. He had left home on a night that still haunted his dreams. The Harroway house had been all shadowed corridors and shut doors, a place where portraits of grim-faced ancestors stared down from the walls as if they might report any scandal directly to heaven. The moon had been rising outside the window when he finally confessed. He told them everything. The strange sensations under the full moon, the growing strength, the instincts he couldn't explain. He told them about the night in the woods when it had happened for the first time. The overwhelming senses, the wildly blooming instincts, the way his skin seemed to ripple with something vast and ancient. His father hadn't even looked up from the fire.
"You'll not bring that madness back into this family,"
he said. His voice was low, clipped, the kind of tone that could slice the air like an executioner's axe.
"You've shamed us enough."
Luca's mother had sat rigid beside him, her hands folded tight around her rosary. She didn't speak. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't wipe them.
I didn't hurt anyone.
Luca said, his voice breaking.
I can control it, I swear.
"Control?"
His father interrupted, standing at last.
"You think you can control what you are? This family has spent generations burying that curse. Do you want the neighbors whispering? Do you want the papers?"
He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The word curse hung heavy in the air, older than the walls, older than the traditions that had built them. Luca had begged once, quietly, like a child again. But he knew it was futile. The only sound afterward was the click of the lock as his father shut the door behind him. Now he lived in Greyhaven, a small coastal town where it was easy to disappear, but easier still to start over. The gulls called out over the water, their voices thin and echoing, and the air smelled of salt and rain, strange and beautiful, like a life waiting to begin. In this new life, he worked the docks, loading, unloading, moving what needed moving. It was brutal, exhausting, and perfect. It left no room for thought. Every night he returned to the peeling two-story house on Chapel Street. It wasn't much, but it was home in ways the manor had never been. His housemates had welcomed him like he'd always belonged there. Bee, curvy and warm, kept her curls wrapped in bright scarves and wore silver hoops that caught the light when she laughed, which was often. Rowan, Bee's partner, was tall and androgynous. freckles scattered like constellations across their pale skin. Their sweaters were always oversized, their voice low and steady, a quiet counterbalance to Bee's joy. Jay, the newest before Luca, was a Filipino trans man with plum-dyed hair and the kind of grin that dared the world to mess with him. He had an artist's hands, ink stains on his fingers, and eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass. They filled the house with warmth, clattering dishes, the hum of music, the occasional drag show rehearsal in the living room. When Luca tried to thank them for letting him rent the spare room, Bee had waved it off.
Your family now, love.
She'd said, pulling him into a hug that smelled like coconut oil and coffee. He didn't know how to tell her that word still hurt. At first, Greyhaven's quiet suited him. He woke early, worked hard, came home to laughter. But the sea never truly slept. At night, its rhythms whispered to him steady, pulsing, like a heartbeat too big for the world. Sometimes he'd wake sweating, his pulse sinking with the tide. He'd feel the wildness beneath his skin, the thing his family had called a curse, humming like a secret between his bones. But it didn't feel evil, it felt alive. And that terrified him more than any monster ever could. He told himself he was in control, that he could live quietly, that he could pretend. But then came the dreams. He dreamed of warm winds blowing across the waves, of gold light bleeding through mist, of a voice calling from somewhere far away, too far to hear, too close to ignore. When he woke, the faint scent of hibiscus lingered in the air, sweet and wrong among the salt and damp wood. It started small, a prickle on the back of his neck walking home at night, a shadow that seemed to move unnaturally against the light. Once, he saw a shape standing at the end of the street, too tall, too still, and when he blinked, it was gone. Another time, a whisper echoed his name across the fog-drenched harbor, soft as breath. He tried to laugh it off when Jay teased him about the local creep stories, but the scent of hibiscus made his stomach twist. It didn't belong here. His burgeoning instincts told him something was waiting, watching. When the next full moon neared, Luca made up his mind. He told his housemates he needed a few days away.
A bit of camping, clear my head.
Bee hugged him tightly, pressing a thermos into his hands. Rowan just touched his arm and said softly,
"Whatever it is, you'll find your way through."
Jay gave him a grin and a wink.
Don't get eaten by a bear, yeah?
If only it were that simple. He left that morning. He planned to take the first bus north and then walk until the town was only a memory of lights behind him. The bus was nearly empty. Just an old woman asleep against the window and a man in a reflective vest sipping coffee that smelled burnt. Luca sat near the back, hood up, backpack wedged between his boots. It was heavier than it should have been. Spare clothes, a blanket, Bee's dented thermos still warm with tea. But the weight pressed on him like his father's words, solid and unshakable. He had left too early, almost absurdly so. The full moon wasn't due until that night, but he couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk waking on the bus with his reflection snarling back at him in the window glass. He'd rather face an empty forest than the panic in someone else's eyes. He watched dawn crawl over the fields, painting everything the color of old brass. Each mile of distance from Greyhaven felt both too much and not enough. His housemates would be going about their day right now, Bee humming in the kitchen, Rowan pulling their sweater on inside out, Jay muttering about coffee. And here he was, running from himself. Again, he kept one hand pressed against the glass, feeling the cold seep through. Each neighborhood the bus passed seemed smaller than the last, until there were only hedgerows and lonely road signs, the kind you forget as soon as you read them. When the bus finally sighed to a stop, the driver barely glanced up. Luca shouldered his pack and stepped out into the chill. The road ahead was narrow and overgrown, the air sharp with dew and wood smoke. He adjusted the strap on his shoulder and started walking. The walk to the forest was longer than he expected. but the distance was welcome. He wanted the quiet. He wanted the world to stop watching. The path sloped gently upward, fields giving way to wild thickets. The salt of the sea faded behind him, replaced by the green hush of inland air. His legs ached, his breath misted in front of him. But he didn't stop. With every step, the silence grew deeper. Not empty silence, but the kind that listened back. By the time the trees gathered around him, their branches heavy with mist, the sky had dulled to pewter. He paused once, turning to look behind him, but the road had already disappeared, swallowed by the fog like a secret desperate to be kept. He shifted his pack, the thermos knocking softly against his side, and stepped forward. The weight no longer felt like punishment. It was something real, something his, proof that he hadn't vanished yet. The forest was thick and damp, the ground soft with moss. He pitched a small tent and built a fire that crackled faintly in the quiet. The moon rose pale and perfect above the trees. For a while nothing happened. Then the pull began. Subtle at first, like a tide under his skin. His breath hitched, his heartbeat quickened. The change started in his hands. Fingers trembled, joints tightening, bones humming like the strings of a violin. Then came the warmth, a rush of power, a flood of clarity. He gasped as light shimmered beneath his skin, silver spreading through his veins like moonlight on water. The sensation stunned him. He fell to his knees. His body lengthened, spine arching, muscles reshaping with elegant inevitability. His ears sharpened, the world blooming with new sounds, heartbeats, wings, whispers in the trees. When he opened his eyes, the color had shifted from brown to piercing blue. He looked almost human still, but not quite. Wolf-like feet sank into the damp earth. Clawed fingers glinted in the moonlight. Long silver hair fell over his shoulders, and his chest rose and fell with a sound caught between sigh and growl. He was more muscular than before, luminous, terrible, and heartbreakingly beautiful. For the first time he felt whole, not cursed, not broken, but complete. And yet the realization stung, because no one else would ever see him this way. The mist began to roll in. Not the soft morning kind that kissed the sea. This was colder, heavier, deliberate. It crawled along the ground like something alive, curling around his legs. He lifted his head, every sense sharp. There, beneath the scent of earth and salt, came the hibiscus again. Sweet, rich, wrong. His pulse stuttered. He looked through the trees. Between the trunks, a figure moved, dark, graceful, slow. The mist thickened, parting around it as if afraid to touch. The air grew heavy. His limbs felt weighted, caught. He tried to move and couldn't. The figure came closer, step by unhurried step, until the shadows kissed the edges of its face, though even then the features seemed ancient, carved from memory more than flesh. When it spoke, the voice was quiet but resonant, like the echo of stone halls and desert winds.
So this is where you've been hiding.
Luca's breath caught, half snarl, half gasp. The hibiscus scent bloomed around him, filling his lungs, wrapping him in something that felt like both worship and warning. The figure smiled faintly, knowingly, and the mist swallowed them both in silver light. And for the first time since his exile, Luca realized his curse might not be the only one in the world. To be continued.
Whew. Well, that was a ride, wasn't it? Poor Luca. Heartbroken, hairy, and apparently stalked by a mystery wrapped in mist. But tell me, my curious little monsters, who do you think that figure was? A ghost? A lover? Or maybe both if we're lucky? As for me, What really gave me chills wasn't the fog or the fangs. It was that silence before the voice spoke. You know, that moment when the world just stops and you realize you're not alone. Sends a shiver right through my sequins. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, be sure to like, subscribe, and keep those notifications on, my loves, because part 2 of the story will be rising from the fog very soon. But if you're just too impatient to wait, well, you might find a few hints hiding among the merch at yaoimonsters.com. Go on. They do bite, but you're going to love it. Until next time, stay glamorous, stay monstrous.